Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at a brand new S-Class character that is going to be coming to the promo wheel, and it is going to also be a brand new Telltale character. And I say brand new because this is going to be the first ever AJ to be in the Walking Dead Road to Survival. It's very rare that we get a brand new Telltale characters at all, to be honest. And we did have Minerva earlier on in the year. We did also have some 6 stars, but obviously not at the top level, the S-Class level. But AJ is a brand new character. He did not feature when Season 4 characters were originally released back in the 6-star era with the likes of Violet, Lewis, Marlon and Rosie, and Clementine. But he is now finally going to be featuring in the S-Class era. Now we look at his get-up and how he looks visually. He does look like he would at the end of Season 4, where he does get Clementine's hat, obviously. Now visually the Clementine's hat looks like it's backwards here, but it's because it's a mirror image. That's how it works in Road to Survival. One way it looks fine, and then the other way it will not. But this is the way it is. When he's looking left, it will look great. When he's looking right, not so much. Now we look at the rest of the get. He has got a backpack because, you know, S-Class characters have to wear backpacks. He does look like he is properly, like, gone through the wars as well. So while this is after the sort of what happened in Season 4, it does look like obviously there's some sort of continuation here within, you know, the eyes of the storyline, and he's still battling along. He has got the Disco Broccoli t-shirt that you could get in Season 4 as well, which I really like. It's a really nice little touch. So a lot of Telltale or AJ fans out there would be pretty happy with how he looks, in my opinion. The only downside in my mind is that he is a fast character and not an alert character. Obviously, quite famous situations within Season 4 where, obviously being an alert character aiming for the head, there was quite obvious things that they could have done with the adrenaline rush, specialist skills, those sort of things. But he's going to be a fast character, and that's the way it's going to be. We'll take a look at his stats. He's got 4,705 attack, so reasonably high attack. It's just above like the likes of Arav. For the defensive stats, he has 3,873 defense and 3,811 HP, so fairly balanced with the defensive stats. And he does seem quite a lot like Arav in terms of his stat balance, just a little bit more attack than Arav does. His trait is still fast. His role is considered a support character. And we go to the adrenaline rush. It's called Refreshing Slashes, 76 AP, deals 600% damage to a line of enemies. This character recovers from all penalties. Now, if I'm honest, that is actually quite an underwhelming rush. It only does 2 things. You know, I have always said if it does seem like a rush is lacking a little bit, and this one does seem like it is lacking, a little tack on the end would not be a go miss. You know, a self buff of damage, a self buff of defense, maybe a little tick of HP, maybe like 20% for 2 turns or something like this, just to seem like it is a bit more of a buffed up rush. This rush is just very, very underwhelming. It does a nice amount of damage. 600% to a line of enemies is actually pretty good, but not much else. This character recovers from all penalties, is nice. There are obviously some issues with that surrounding certain other characters when it comes to trauma, that sort of thing, but it's no big deal with trauma really. But there's nothing else on it. It just seems to be like you have characters with 4 or 5 things going on, and this has literally just got 2. I mean, I guess you could say cleansing everything is a big cleanse. You could say it's cleansing like 10 different things here effectively, but at the same time it's most likely only going to cleanse 1 or 2 things at a time, so it's not really going to be that big a deal. I would have liked to see a small bonus HP on here, like 25% bonus HP to this character alone. That would have been like just that little boost that it needed. Or maybe a crit buff, because there are some other elements in AJ's kit where crit would actually have been pretty decent. However, we'll move on to the active skill, and this is where it does get good. The rush may be a bit underwhelming, but the active skill is tier 1 for sure. Normalize, impair, and AP gain. It has an initial cooldown of 2, cooldown of 3, and number of uses 5. This is kind of standard. Normalize and impair for 2 turns a line of enemies. This character gets 35% AP. So, obviously, more going on here than in the rush. To be honest, 3 things here, 2 things in the rush. But Normalize still does not have any resist, so very, very strong. Resist will no doubt come, but what happens when you normalize a character is their specialist skill no longer functions. So there are very powerful specialist skills like Bide and Payback. These specialist skills you definitely want to neutralize with a normalized character, so you can actually rush them and so you can get damage off on them without them proccing their bide or proccing their payback. Now the impair is just a little bonus on top. It doesn't really mean too much, it just means they're not going to gain AP. And this character gaining 35% AP doesn't mean too much, except on a defense team. He could still get his rush turn 3 without being commanded. If he has an AP weapon and an AP leader, there aren't too many situations where that's going to be the case right now. But in the future, an AP leader could come out. So 35% really isn't good enough otherwise because he has 76 AP. And most of the time, he's going to finish off turn 2 with roughly 69 to 70 AP. He could obviously get that small boost if you do have an AP weapon on your defense team. He will obviously get boosted up to 76, so you might have to run an AP percentage weapon to get AJ his third turn rush naturally. And this is where we move on to the specialist skill, and it is a very underutilized specialist skill, but it is one that I like, especially since it was in the last real big round of buffs, and it's Cutthroat. Whenever this character deals damage to a fighter that is under the effect of a debilitating status, they will deal 50% extra damage. Now, debilitating statuses used to be Confuse, Impair, Stun, and Taunt. Now, it's unclear whether there are some other ones being added in there, like Normalize. I would assume Normalize would be a debilitating status, but we kind of need to be told what our debilitating status is. Hopefully this is going to be clarified in the future, but it used to be the key 4 effects. Like I said before, Confuse, Stun, Impair, and Taunt. Now the big thing about Cutthroat is it will also work with his rush, so that 600% damage rush turns into a 900% damage rush, and that's when it goes into that sort of like elite level of damage, especially considering his attack stat is actually pretty decent on his base weapon. It's not too bad. And this is where I was talking about before, where if it did tack on a little bit of crit here, the crit damage on characters with Cutthroat and the extra crit would be huge. He could potentially be hitting like 1500, 2k damage just on basic attacks. Now he has not got an attached weapon, and that is a bit of a shame because he's a fast character and he is a little bit more offensive. It could have made it so that he had an actual attached weapon that had something special in it. Like Heng Yen, something that makes him so great is the fact that he can get 100% crit and he has double attack, and it's just all around Heng Yen's kit is blossomed really nicely with the new armory. I think AJ could potentially get 100% crit. That would be pretty good too. But there's no real offensive third slot still. There is always a problem for fast characters when it comes to that third slot being offensive, so he's still most likely going to have to go with absolute defense. And that's kind of like the default that you have to do with fast characters, unless they're given an attached weapon, and they missed the opportunity here. Could have been something unique. It doesn't have to be something too powerful, but we're not going to have anything. You can obviously make your own weapons. 8% weapons and absolute defense is probably going to be the way to go for him, especially as I see him as a character that will mainly be used on a defense team. He seems to be like an Arav, but without the downsides of the AP gain. And while that is an upside for an attack team, because you can say when you want to do it, on a defense team, you can have a character take themselves out just being exhausted, basically. That is not going to be an issue that AJ runs into too much. He will get a little bit of exhaust damage based on the fact that he does gain AP on his active, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now I see AJ working on those Jackie defense teams, and something that I see as a bit of an issue here is the fact that Jackie defense teams, when they do their Confused turn 1, something that AJ could take advantage of with his Cutthroat, it doesn't actually last into the enemy's turn. It only lasts on the actual first turn of the attacking team. The second it goes to the enemy, the Confuse runs out. So things like Defense While Confused or Cutthroat don't get any bonuses here, and I think they need to extend how Confuse works so it cleanses it at the beginning of your next turn, kind of like it works with Stun, not the end of your current turn. I'm fairly certain that's how it works with Stun anyway. That way AJ and those mods would actually be able to be useful, because right now, not so much. Now, AJ obviously will still be able to take advantage of other debilitating effects if they come up, but there aren't really any characters out there just yet who are going to be doing those debilitating effects regularly in teams with Jackie and AJ. Pretty much the only character I can think of is Aaron, who is a fast character who has Impair on his active. Another character potentially could be Rosita, who has a Taunt active, but that is an extremely powerful Taunt active and most likely will be shut down as quickly as possible. So I think AJ is actually a pretty decent character, just a little bit underwhelming with his adrenaline rush, and could have maybe had something just to top things off on his weapon. But otherwise, I think all round will be dangerous on a defense team. Not so much an attack team, just because he has someone who's much better at what he's doing, which is going to be Arav. But you could take AJ as a support character, which he is seen as his role, and not a damage dealer, which he would be on a defense team, because that normalize is extremely powerful. There are very few amount of characters that have normalize. I don't think it's going to be really commonplace, and normalize is very, very important when it comes to taking out defense teams. One of the big things I've talked about is the fact that a lot of teams are going to rely on Princess, and that means Princess is going to be used off trait in a lot of lineups. AJ is going to help this with like melee teams or certain fast attack teams, because then you could switch out Princess, get leader bonus, and still get a highly effective active skill. Now, they could also be used in the same team, both AJ and Princess, either on a defense team or an attack team. And seeing as they're both turn 2, if you're coming up against a team with both of them in, there's only so much you can do. You can only daze so much, you can only control so much. So potentially one of these guys are going to go off and likely normalize one of your key specialists. Now, of course, I'm a massive Telltale fan, so I'm really biased. Visually, I think he's perfect, except maybe he could have been an alert character. That's pretty much the only thing I would have changed. I am definitely going to do a temple for this character. Obviously, Telltale, it's got to be done. Do tell me your thoughts on AJ, the newest Telltale character to come to the game, the last one that we know of that has been leaked. Potentially more to come in the future, we'll have to wait and see. But do tell me what you think about him in the comments. That is the end of my video, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.